They called it the screaming hour. One night, the sky tore open with a noise so loud it shattered windows. When the sun rose, every adult was gone. Not dead. Worse. They became predators. They ran like animals, screamed like demons, and hunted anything young. Only kids survived. But surviving wasn't the same as living. The city divided into factions quickly. The kings, the oldest, strongest teens. They controlled food, weapons, and fear. Seekers, kids who risked the streets for supplies. Reapers, the violent ones. They hunted adults, and sometimes kids. Smaller groups barely worth naming until someone discovered a use for them. And then there was me, Kai. Just another terrified 14-year-old in a walled safe zone. I kept my head down. I did chores. I stayed useful. That's how you stayed alive. But I still found one thing to hold my heart together. Amora. She was sunlight in a world stained black. Long braids, sharp eyes, a laugh that made you forget we were living in hell. Whenever I passed by, she always smiled, the kind that made you feel like you mattered. But everyone knew she was being groomed by the kings. Pretty. Smart. Ambitious. Deadly combination. Still. I let myself hope. Idiot. One afternoon, alarms wailed. Kids rushed outside to see a Reaper patrol dragging in a half-transformed adult, clothes torn, fingernails bloody from clawing the pavement. Its eyes locked on me. Not the others. Me. It shrieked violently, thrashing, trying to break free just to reach me. The kings panicked. And fear needs a target. Amora stepped forward. Her voice shook from fear. Or excitement. There's something wrong with him, she said, pointing at me. He led this creature here. My stomach dropped. What? That's not true. I choked out. I've never. But the other kids already stepped back from me. Eyes narrowing. Whispers like knives. Infected. His marked. His one of them. The creature kept shrieking, tearing its throat raw only for me. A king, Drake, grabbed me by the collar and slammed me to the ground. You brought a monster to our wall. That makes you a traitor. No, I didn't. I screamed, coughing. My eyes found Amora's, desperate, pleading. Her face softened. But then she turned away. I saw him near the fences last night, she lied. He's been acting strange for days. I felt something crack inside me. Not a bone. Something more painful. As I was dragged toward the gate that only opened to throw out troublemakers or corpses, I shouted. Amora, please, you know me. She approached slowly. For a second, I thought she'd save me. Maybe she cared. Maybe she. Her fingers brushed my cheek like a goodbye. You're sweet, Kai, she whispered. But you're not worth risking everything for. And then she pushed me. Hard. I stumbled through the gate, hit the ground, and rolled into the dust. The gates clanged shut behind me. The last thing I saw was Amora's beautiful face. Cold. And satisfied. Then I heard them. Dozens of footsteps. Fast. Hungry. Getting closer. And for the first time since the screaming hour, I screamed too. And at the very front, Amora smiled. Not in pity. Not in goodbye. But in victory. Traitors deserve to be eaten, she sneered before turning her back. I never got to ask what I had done wrong. The first few zombies lunged. They were fast adult bodies twisted by infection, claws and teeth gnashing in a blur of hunger. They shrieked as they ran, bones cracking with every movement. I braced for the bite. But they slowed. Their shadows loomed, circling me, sniffing, jaws twitching like they were confused. Why? Why weren't they tearing me apart? Blood dripped from my elbows and palms, they could smell it, I knew they could. Yet they only prowled nearby like predators unsure of their prey. I didn't wait to understand. I bolted. Every breath hurt, every muscle screamed. I hid under abandoned cars. Behind dumpsters. In ruined storefronts with broken mannequins staring through shattered glass. I scavenged whatever I could, soggy chips left in an open bag, rainwater pooled in a gutter. I slept curled behind a vending machine, covering myself in trash to mask my scent. Zombies wandered close. Sometimes only inches from me. Their cloudy eyes never focusing, like I wasn't worth the effort. But humans, former friends armed with makeshift spears, patrolled the streets, hunting for runaways. They were far more terrifying. They killed with joy, not hunger. Lesson number 1. Monsters didn't betray me. People did. Days blurred together. My wounds crusted over. My heart hardened. I became a shadow, silent, invisible, surviving because nobody cared enough to notice I still breathed. One night, as I searched a half-collapsed apartment building for food, I froze. Screams. Not panicked. Rage-filled. Then laughter. Cruel, triumphant. Through a shattered window, I saw torchlight flickering against the graffiti-marked walls of a ruined mall. Kids, dozens of them tearing into each other like animals, factions fighting for territory. Not even zombies dared go near the chaos. Humans. Always humans. A cold chill ran down my spine. I backed away slowly, but a loose brick fell at my heel, clattering loudly. The screams went silent. And somewhere in the dark, someone whispered, "Did you hear that? Over there." My heart punched against my ribs. I turned and ran. Screams thundered behind me as the mob surged. Footsteps, dozens of them, pounding faster than my lungs could breathe. My shoes slipped on wet concrete as I zigzagged through alleys. They shouted orders. "Cut him off. Don't let him get away. His alone, his ours." Hands clawed at my jacket, but I twisted free, scraping my palms on a brick wall as I vaulted over debris. Glass crunched under me, too loud. More voices joined the hunt. They didn't want food. They wanted entertainment. I burst onto a main road, empty, too empty. Then I saw them. A zombie pack at the far end. Bodies twitching. Heads snapping toward me. Trapped. Damn it. I veered into a collapsed storefront, the sign hanging by one hinge, "Furniture and Home." The building leaned dangerously, its skeleton exposed. Dust filled the air with every step I took. Behind me, the pack of kids spilled into the road, shouting and laughing. "We found you." Shadows scrambled over broken furniture. I spotted an old elevator shaft, doors jammed open, pitch black below. I didn't think, instincts shoved me forward. I kicked loose a metal table to block the path and sprinted. A hand caught the back of my shirt, nails digging into my skin. I tore free, fabric ripping. One more step, then I jumped. Gravity yanked me down into the shaft as screams echoed above. My body slammed into a pile of collapsed mattresses several floors below, the air knocked from my lungs. Dust rained as furniture above collapsed in after me, sealing the entrance. Darkness. Silence. No footsteps. No voices. Just my heartbeat and the faint distant moans of something outside the walls. I lay there, shaking, covered in grime, realizing something terrifying. The zombies didn't scare me most anymore. It was the children. The world hadn't ended because adults turned into monsters. It ended because kids were turning into something worse. I pushed myself up, limping into the basement tunnels anywhere but here. Anywhere far away from them. And for the first time since the apocalypse began, I was truly, horrifyingly, alone. Surviving alone meant thinking like prey. I moved in silence, always watching windows, always counting exits. I learned to step only on carpet or dirt, never glass or fallen tiles. Noise was death. Curiosity was death. Kindness was death. City zombies were nothing like the shuffling corpses from old movies. These things ran. They leapt over cars, scrabbled up walls like spiders, screeching with the voices of mothers and fathers whose love had rotted into hunger. At night, their screams echoed like they were crying for their children they could no longer recognize. Every time I heard that, I hugged my knees tighter just to keep from falling apart. Safe places were illusions. Kids fought over anything, a can of beans, a dry corner to sleep, even someone's shoes. They were faster to murder than help. I saw factions paint the streets with blood just to claim abandoned vending machines. One gang strung a boy from a traffic light as a warning. Trust no one. Children can be worse than the monsters. I slept in a different place each night, inside crashed buses, above ceiling rafters, even inside a toy store dressed like a mannequin. Anything to vanish. I convinced myself I preferred it that way. But hunger doesn't care about pride. One evening, rain pouring like bullets, I dashed into a looted grocery store. The shelves were bones, stripped clean. Just wrappers and rat droppings. But a faint noise made me freeze. A muffled sob. Not a zombie. Not a hunter. Something small. I tracked the sound to the back, a dented metal storage door blocked with crates. I shifted them aside slowly, just enough to open a crack. Two wide eyes stared up at me from the darkness. Children. One older by a year maybe, the other smaller and trembling. Skinny arms wrapped around each other, like they were trying to become one person just to stay safe. Before I could speak, the older one whispered, voice hoarse with fear, "Are you here to hurt us?" My heart twisted. I should have walked away. But I didn't. Their names came out in tiny breaths. Aiden, 6. Leo, 5. Brothers. Bones visible through their skin. Lips cracked. Their clothes stiff with dried sweat and dust. They looked like they had been holding their breath since the world ended. They told me their story in pieces. Day 1, their parents turned. Day 2, they saw other kids kill each other. Day 3, they ran into this store and never walked back out. Every sound outside was death. So they starved in silence. I tried to give them a cracker from my pocket. Aiden didn't take it, he pushed Leo forward instead, always protecting his brother first. Leo chewed like eating hurt. I said nothing. Just watching them eat made my chest ache in ways zombies never could. I promised myself I'd survive alone. But leaving them here would make me a monster too. Aiden's voice cracked. Please, don't let the loud ones find us. The loud ones? The answer came too quickly. A shriek tore through the front of the store, a chorus of them. Shelves rattled. Metal groaned. Glass shattered. A pack. Faster than cars, tearing through aisles in a blur of claws and teeth. Leo whimpered. The sound was small, but not small enough. The nearest zombie jerked its head. Its milky eyes locked right onto our door. Aiden grabbed my sleeve, fingers shaking. Kai, please, don't let them take us. My heart hammered. Fight. Or watch them die. No one else was coming. I pulled the boys behind me and gripped a broken metal pipe with white knuckles. The door exploded inward, the first zombie lunging. Time slowed. My fear didn't matter. They mattered. The door exploded inward, the first zombie lunging. Its nails scraped concrete as it dove for Aiden. I swung the pipe with everything I had. Crack. Bone shattered. The creature dropped, but more bodies surged over it, scrambling like starving wolves. Clawed hands swiped at the boy's ankles as I kicked one in the face, blood spraying the wall. Run. I shouted, though I wasn't sure where. Aiden pulled Leo toward a stack of crates in the corner. I grabbed the smaller boy under his arms and shoved the crates aside with my shoulder, revealing a rusted maintenance hatch in the floor. Leo cried out as I dragged them both into the dark space below. My legs screamed as I gripped the hatch handle and yanked it closed just as fingers clawed against the metal. Bang! 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 Zombies hammered overhead, snarling like trapped animals. The hatch rattled, threatening to buckle. Leo clung to me, sobbing softly into my shirt. Aiden hugged his brother tightly, trying to be brave, but his trembling gave him away. I forced steady breaths. Stay calm. Panic kills. We crawled through the narrow crawlspace, cold concrete scraping knees and elbows. The sounds above followed us, talons scratching metal, guttural clicks echoing through vents. Then, silence. Too quiet. We reached a rusted ladder that led down into darker shadows. I hesitated only a second before climbing first, helping the boys follow. The air smelled of mold and stagnant water. A drainage tunnel. Thin beams of moonlight cut through grates above. We walked, feet splashing shallow water. I stayed between the brothers and the darkness behind. Occasional moans drifted faintly but distant. Finally, the tunnel widened into a collapsed underground parking garage, shielded from the city above. Safe enough, for now. Aiden sank to his knees, breath shuddering. Leo pressed his face into my side, tiny fingers locking onto my shirt. I knelt with them. Are we safe? Aiden whispered. Not safe. Never safe. But I forced a weak smile. For tonight, I said. We'll rest here. Then we keep moving. Aiden looked up at me, eyes wide, desperate, hopeful. Thank you, Kai. That tiny voice, full of trust I didn't deserve, hit harder than anything today. I wasn't a hero. But now I wasn't alone. I set up a makeshift barrier with tires and a bent car door. We sat close to conserve warmth. Above us, distant screams of factions and monsters blended into a lullaby of terror. Yet between these two fragile shadows clinging to me, for the first time in weeks, I felt like I had a reason to fight. We left before dawn, slipping through cracks in the city, keeping to alleys where even rats avoided the streets. Smoke rose from places kids set fires to flush out enemies. The world had become a war playground built from dead adults' bones. The boys held my hands. Aiden on my right, Leo on my left. Their grips tiny but desperate. The closer we got to the city's edge, the more dangerous the children became. Hunters of a new world. Packs of them, screaming, painted in soot and blood, chasing each other with makeshift weapons. Factions. Not just scavengers now. Child armies. One group spotted us, chain-wrapped arms, sharpened shovels. They whistled to signal others. I shoved the boys behind a crashed van, drawing the pipe from my belt. My pulse thudded like a war drum. If anything happens, you two run. Don't look back. Aiden's lip trembled. Leo squeezed his brother's shirt. But I couldn't let fear freeze me. Not now. When a scout ran ahead of his group, laughing, I struck first. The metal pipe slammed into his gut. He wheezed and fell. I grabbed his bag and whatever supplies he dropped. Blankets. Dried meat. A rusty knife, small but sharp. Before more arrived, we slipped into the saw runoff tunnels. It stank of death and stale rainwater, but the screams above faded. Hours felt like years. The tunnel opened to the wild, the mountains waiting like dark, jagged teeth. I glanced back only once. The city skyline, broken and burning, looked like a graveyard. Aiden tugged my sleeve. You're our big brother now. That simple sentence cracked something inside me. Not blood. Not family by birth. But chosen. Leo reached up with his tiny hand to wipe tears I didn't realize were falling. I nodded, whispering, yeah, I guess I am. We climbed, slowly, painfully, toward a quieter kind of danger. Into the mountains. Away from the wars children now led. Up here, everything was different. The air tasted sharp and clean. Pines whispered with the wind. The silence felt almost peaceful until something moved. Mountain zombies weren't like the city ones. They were colder, slower, but silent, their icy joints barely making a sound. And they were strong. We followed a narrow deer trail along the ridge when Leo suddenly screamed. A corpse dropped from the branches above, its frozen fingers nearly crushing his head. I tackled it before it pinned him. We rolled down a slope, rocks slicing my arms. Its jaws snapped inches from my face, teeth chipping against my pipe as I jammed it sideways into its mouth. We struggled, bones creaking, until I found the knife at my hip. I drove the blade into its eye. Once, twice, 3 times. It finally stopped moving. My hands shook so violently I almost dropped the knife. Leo sobbed into my chest while Aiden stood guard like a tiny soldier, pipe raised. "You're okay," I whispered, unsure if I meant him or myself. The boys helped me stand. We kept moving, slower now, every shadow a threat. Just before the sun died behind the peaks, we found it. An old cabin hidden by pines, roof sagging but walls intact. Smoke stains on the stone chimney hinted it once was warm. A stream trickled nearby, clear and drinkable. Home or something like it. A single photo was nailed to the door, a family smiling, a father with a fishing pole, a mother hugging a little girl wearing a pink jacket, a baby boy in her arms. Their happiness felt ancient. Cruel. Aiden traced the faces with a shaky finger. "Do you think they're still alive?" I didn't know. I didn't want to know. Inside, dust coated everything, but the fireplace worked. I lit a small fire, warming the boys' frozen toes. Leo fell asleep instantly in my lap. Aiden curled beside me, head on my shoulder. Outside, far beyond the walls, the wind carried distant moans, zombies searching for heat, sound, life. I stared into the fire, exhaustion pulling at me, and for the first time, a terrifying thought crept in. If the world keeps taking everything from us, how much longer until I become a monster too? As the flames crackled, the family photo swayed gently in the breeze, smiling at a world that no longer existed. The fire's glow softened the edges of the world, but morning would take that comfort away. Surviving wasn't rest. Surviving was work. On the first day, we explored every inch of the cabin. Drawers jammed with old tools, a rusted hatchet, a coil of wire, nails dulled by time. Not much, but enough. The forest offered more, if we were smart and careful. We scavenged wild onions by a stream, bitter berries that stained our fingertips, and mushrooms I only let them eat after watching birds peck them without dying. Aiden kept asking, "How do you know what's safe?" "I don't," I admitted. "But I'm learning." We set simple snares using the wire, catching a rabbit by pure luck. The boys watched as I skinned it, trembling at first, but hunger made reality teeth sharp. When the first zombie came, blue-lipped and frostbitten, Leo froze like prey. Aiden grabbed his hand but couldn't move either. So I moved. The hatchet split the creature's skull with a dull crack. It collapsed in a heap, steam rising from its ruined head. I wiped blood from my face and looked at them. "If we want to live," I said, voice shaking only a little, "we can't be scared of what's already dead." They didn't answer at first, but Leo finally whispered, "I want to be strong, like you." Aiden nodded, jaw clenched. I taught them what I knew, how to listen for quiet footsteps in the snow, how to climb trees silently, how to swing a branch hard enough to break bone. We built a barricade, dragging broken logs, weaving thorny branches between them. Every night, I circled the perimeter while the boys slept. Every night, something watched from the shadows. But we endured. Days carved muscle into our bones. Cold air toughened our lungs. Food became skill, not luck. We counted time by the firelight. 1 full month survived without screaming, begging, or bleeding for others' amusement. Aiden smiled more now, faint, but real. Leo laughed once when a rabbit tried to kick him. Sometimes. I laughed too. I used to believe I had nothing left. Just instinct. Just fear. But here, in this fragile shelter we built with our own hands, I found something I thought was gone. Hope. The kind that doesn't shout or dream. The kind that quietly refuses to die. Winter crept deeper into the mountains. Snow piled like a white coffin around us, but inside the cabin, 3 hearts beat strong. Survival felt possible. Maybe, even life. But peace, in this world, never lasts long. Time slipped away like melting snow. Days, weeks, maybe months. We didn't mark them anymore. The sun rose, the sun fell, and we survived between those 2 events. That was all that mattered. The boys grew stronger. Their shoulders less bony. Their eyes less haunted. Aiden practiced swinging a wooden spear we crafted from a broken broom handle. Leo learned how to tie snares, proud every time the knots held. We gathered firewood daily and even chopped down a few small trees using the hatchet Kai had sharpened over and over until the handle threatened to split. We were becoming something dangerous. Survivors. One morning, footsteps in the snow stopped us cold. We crouched behind the barricade, weapons raised. But instead of zombies, 4 children appeared. 2 girls, one around 12 or 13, a little girl maybe 5 like Leo, the 2 boys around 9 to 10. They are wrapped in animal hides and patched jackets. Eyes alert but not cruel. They carried no weapons raised. The oldest, a girl with dark braids and a stone-cold gaze, stepped forward. "We don't want to fight," she said. "We want to trade." Leo hid behind my hip. Aiden stood tall, pipe clenched hard enough to whiten his knuckles. They showed what they had. Dried meat. A small med kit. A working lighter. Not war. Not conquest. Negotiation. In exchange, they wanted firewood. Our snares. A place to rest, sometimes. "We came from over there," the girl pointed lower into the valley. "Factions in the city are expanding. They're hunting anyone not under their rule. They'll reach these mountains soon." My grip on the hatchet tightened. I'd seen what factions did. I wasn't letting that hell touch these boys. But I didn't trust anyone. "We work alone," I said. Aiden glanced at me, hurt flickering through his eyes. Leo looked up like I just kicked his puppy. The girl nodded thoughtfully. "We get it. Just watch your back. No place stays hidden forever." They left without further argument, disappearing into the trees like ghosts. As the silence returned, Aiden finally spoke. His voice small but sharp. "Do you want to leave us too?" His question slammed into my chest harder than any zombie. I knelt to face him. Leo's tiny fingers slipped into mine like a lifeline. "I'm not leaving," I said. "Not ever." Aiden's chin quivered. "Promise." I pulled them both into a rough, messy hug. "You two are all I've got. We survive together. That's the promise." Aiden's arms tightened around my neck. Leo buried his face in my shoulder. Outside, wind howled against the cabin like a mourning animal. Inside, warmth. Not just from the fire. From us. The next morning, we set out to hunt, weapons ready, traps checked, senses sharp from instinct rather than fear. That's when we heard it. Screaming. Panicked. Small. We rushed toward the noise. In a clearing. The 4 kids from yesterday. 2 boys swinging sticks wildly. The older girl, the one who wanted to trade, slashing with a broken branch sharpened to a spear. And a little girl, no older than 6, sobbing but still hitting a zombie with a stone clutched in her tiny hand. 2 zombies versus 4 children. And they were losing. I didn't think. I moved. I ran with my hatchet and struck into the skull of the first zombie. And into the second. Both corpses hit the dirt before the children finished screaming. When the danger was gone, the little girl dropped the stone and collapsed into tears. The older girl hugged her protectively, trembling not from fear of zombies, but from us. Humans were the new predators. She swallowed hard. "We didn't track you," she stammered. "We were only hunting." Aiden stepped forward and offered his hand. "We know." The girl stared at his hand like it was a weapon. I wanted to walk away. We had barely survived. Bringing others in? That was how people died. But as I watched them, those small, shaking kids, I saw us from a month ago. Scared. Hungry. Trying so hard not to disappear. Leo tugged on my sleeve. "Kai, we can't just leave them." And Aiden's voice quiet, but firm. Maybe it's okay to trust someone again." The older girl bowed her head. "If we're a burden, tell us to leave. But please don't hurt us. I hated this world for making children beg like that." I sighed, rubbing the back of my neck. "Fine. You can come with us," I muttered, trying not to sound like I cared too much. "But you earn your keep. You fight. You learn. And most importantly," I looked each of them straight in the eye, "you don't betray us." The little girl's tear-streaked face brightened with a weak smile. The teenage girl finally relaxed, shoulders sagging with relief. "We won't," she said. "I swear." As we guided them through the trees, back toward our makeshift home, a bitter, fragile hope flickered inside me. Maybe these 4 were different. Maybe we weren't just surviving anymore. Maybe we were rebuilding a family. And maybe, just maybe, this mountain could be the last safe place. We got to know them as we went to the cabin. They are siblings. Raven. Age 13, wary eyes but fierce courage. Sia. Age 5, fragile, yet somehow still smiling. Sam and Dean, 9-year-old fraternal twins, loyal to their sister like a shield to a sword. That first night together was quiet, too quiet. The forest usually howled and groaned, but the air felt like it was holding its breath waiting. The kids slept inside the cabin. I stayed outside, guarding. Footsteps creaked behind me, slow, cautious. "Raven. Go to sleep," I murmured, eyes forward. No, she replied, voice rough from exhaustion. I can help. She stood beside me, a wooden spear in her shaky hands, and together we listened to the forest. We didn't talk. Words weren't necessary. Survival was our language. But eventually, the stars faded. Weak rays of dawn brushed the treetops, and Raven's grip loosened. Her knees trembled, then stilled. She fell asleep standing up. Seriously? I sighed under my breath. Carefully, awkwardly, I scooped her into my arms. She was too light. No 13-year-old should weigh that little. Inside the cabin, Sia stirred awake, big eyes watching me like some kind of hero in a bedtime story. She giggled softly, covering her mouth. Sam and Dean peeked over their blankets too, grinning like they'd caught me doing something embarrassing. I lowered Raven beside Sia. Go back to sleep, I whispered. They all nodded, but didn't close their eyes until I stepped back outside. I resumed my watch, heart strangely warm. Maybe trust wasn't a weakness after all. 1 week later, after learning more of each other, we became stronger, faster, more alert, but still just kids. We were out gathering food and wood like any normal day when the birds suddenly burst from the trees in a terrified storm of feathers. The forest went silent. No wind. No insects. No life. Just death approaching. Positions. I hissed. Aiden and Leo drew their makeshift bows. Raven steadied her spear. Sam and Dean lifted sharpened sticks with shaking hands. Sia stood behind them, gripped tight on a small dagger I made her, just in case. My heart hammered so hard, I thought the zombies would hear it. Branches snapped. Figures emerged from the dark tangle of trees. Zombies. But not like before. Their eyes, focused. Heads turning as if thinking. Still slow but coordinated. Evolved. The first one lunged, I met it before its fingers reached us. One perfect strike to the skull. But there were more, 6, 7. Don't let them circle us, I shouted. Sam and Dean fought one together, fear burning into determination. Aiden and Leo used their arrows but some missed, then finally they landed a hit, every movement desperate but improving. Raven screamed as she plunged her spear through a ribcage, forcing a zombie back. Sia, trembling behind me, yelled, trying to scare them away just with her voice. I tore through 3 more. Sweat stung my eyes. Arms aching. Breath burning. One zombie grabbed Aiden's jacket, teeth snapping toward his throat. No. I roared and slammed into it, crushing its skull under my heel. Blood soaked into the soil. We kept fighting. Until nothing moved except us. The final zombie fell with a wet thud, Raven's spear deep in its skull. Silence again. Except this time. It wasn't peaceful. We stood there panting, small, trembling survivors staring at a pile of corpses like monsters we were forced to become. Raven wiped her tears and tried not to show fear. Sam and Dean hugged each other, drenched in sweat and disbelief. Aiden and Leo were pale but alive. Sia waddled up to me, tiny hands grabbing my sleeve. Kai, we won, right? Her voice cracked. Not from fear, but hope. I knelt, resting a blood-stained hand on her head. Yeah, Sia, I breathed. We won. But inside, a cold truth gnawed at me. If zombies are evolving, so will the factions. So will the worst of humanity. This mountain, our little world, wouldn't stay safe forever. And survival would only get harder from here. Months passed, quietly, almost kindly. We hunted. We chopped trees. We built walls. We trained. And against all odds, we lived. Aiden and Leo grew taller, their baby faces replaced by hardened determination. Sia shot arrows almost better than Aiden now, her tiny fingers deadly steady. Sam and Dean developed muscle from hauling logs and swinging axes beside me. Raven, she became a weapon. Cold focus. Quick strikes. No hesitation. As for me, 15 now, my body changed too. Stronger shoulders. Calloused hands. Scars across my arms like maps of survival. We didn't celebrate holidays, we didn't even know what day it was anymore. So we made our own. Birthday feasts, simple meals, a candle carved from hardened resin, and laughter that we fought to protect more fiercely than anything. For a time, it felt like the world had forgotten us. But the world never forgets survivors. One late afternoon, I ventured farther than I should have toward an old village road. And what I saw, feral kids, armed with steel poles, sharpened blades, even bits of armor. They were feasting. Meat cooked over a fire, stolen from who knows where. Around them, bodies of evolved zombies slaughtered with ease. They had grown stronger, faster. Together, a new faction. Laughing like predators. My blood froze. If they could kill evolved mountain zombies, what would they do to us? I hid in the trees, heart pounding, then sprinted back home before they noticed me. We needed to prepare. We needed to be smarter. So we dug hidden tunnels beneath the earth, escape routes and ambush paths. We built deadfall traps, sharpened log spikes, and noise alarms using tin scraps and bottles. Every day was backbreaking work. Every night was haunted by dread. We survived this long, Raven reminded me once, we won't die now. But I could hear the fear even in her determination. They came at dawn. The forest erupted with shouts, taunts, war cries. More than a dozen city kids approached, armed and sure of their strength. Their leader smirked at us from the tree line. Well, mountain rats. I stepped forward, spear ready. You need to leave, I warned. Instead, he raised his hand. The attack began. They rushed us, confident, arrogant. That confidence died when they stepped into our first trap. Crack. A pit opened beneath the front attackers, screams cut sharp as sharpened stakes claimed them. Our arrows flew next. Sam and Dean fired with deadly accuracy, hitting legs, arms, disabling, not killing. But they still fell. Raven and I took the front line, slashing and striking. But their numbers pushed hard, too hard. Then the forest went silent again. Branches rustled. Low growls echoed through the trees. Mountain zombies. Dozens. Drawn by the noise. Their pale arms clawed at bark as they descended from above, fast, silent. The city kids turned, terror overwhelming their bravado. What the? Get them off. Chaos exploded. We fell back through the hidden tunnel as the evolved dead crashed into the invaders. Blood sprayed the snow. Cries tore the cold air apart. Teeth sank into skin. The forest feasted. None of them escaped. Not one. We stood behind our barricades, dirty, shaking, alive, while the last screams faded into the wind. Sia grabbed my hand with trembling fingers. Did we win? She whispered. I looked at our traps. At the corpses hanging like broken puppets. We survived, I said. Winning felt like a lie. The city kids were spreading. More would come. Stronger. More ruthless. Our peace was ending. And soon. We'd have to choose between running farther than ever before, or becoming the monsters the world demanded. War never stopped. Not for a second. The mountain became our fortress and our weapon. Every step the city factions took into our territory. Snap, a bear trap crushed bone. Screech, alarm strings rattled cans and metal, calling the dead. Thud, a log trap impaled the bold. The zombies. They became our unwanted allies. Drawn by noise. By blood. By the smell of fear. The mountains protected us with teeth of their own. 5 more survivors stumbled into our land 1 week beaten, starved, chained together by another faction who used them as bait. We saved them. We offered them a choice. Fight with us. Or die with them. They chose to fight. And as they recovered, our numbers grew into a force to fear. The city started telling ghost stories about us. The mountain wolves. Kids who command the dead. A place where invaders never return. We became a nightmare whispered around dying fires. Some factions stopped coming. Others, the older ones, kids who survived long enough to reach early adulthood, kept trying, desperate for domination. Their height and strength were terrifying. Some almost 20 years old, mutated by constant conflict, looking more monster than human. But we learned. We adapted. We survived. We counted the days. Not by a calendar, but by losses and victories. We went into the city ruins when we could. Stores, police stations, schools, any place we hadn't scavenged before. We looted weapons, machetes, metal sheets for armor, bows and bolts, tools to reinforce defenses, even books, survival manuals, field medicine, old children's fairy tales. We read to keep our minds from crumbling. We trained every sunrise. We buried every friend we couldn't save. We were just kids. But we became soldiers. The zombies in the mountains changed too. Bigger, smarter, fast enough that silence became our oxygen. Sometimes we saw them watching, from high up in the trees, unseen until their teeth sank into flesh. We used the dead as shields, as distractions, as storms to unleash on our enemies. But we knew. One mistake equals gone forever. Still, we endured. War became our way of breathing. One morning. No screams. No invaders. No zombies. Just quiet. Birds chirped somewhere distant, like nature forgot the world had ended. Leo whispered beside me, gripping his knife. Kai, where did everyone go? I didn't know. For the first time in a long time, that terrified me more than anything. Because chaos you expect. Chaos you can fight. But silence. Silence meant something changed. Something worse. We gathered around the fire that night, 15 survivors with the others we saved, aged by horror beyond our years, staring into the stillness like it might attack us. Raven broke the quiet. Whatever stopped this war is on its way here. And deep down, I felt it too. Something had ended. But something else had just begun. The silence wasn't peace. It was observation. Eyes we couldn't see, watching every step, every kill, every fear. The first clue? A faint buzzing in the air at night, like tiny machines. The second? Zombies behaving like they were, following commands. But the truth slammed into me the day I found the bunker. Buried beneath moss and roots, a steel hatch. I hacked it open during a scavenging trip alone. Inside. Screens. Maps. Documents. Footage of us, every battle, every scream, every birthday we forced ourselves to celebrate. Project Genesis, Child Soldier Survival Program. Candidates placed on isolated island to undergo forced evolution through high-stress combat environment. Selected children from families refusing patriotic enlistment. The world didn't end. It abandoned us. We weren't survivors. We were lab rats. I closed the hatch quietly. If the others knew now, panic would kill what hope we still had. But the rage inside me burned like wildfire. It was dark when I whispered the truth to her. She sat still for a long moment, fists shaking, lips trembling. Then she said, "I always suspected. My parents argued with men in black suits before we were taken. I thought they died protecting us." She looked up, eyes burning. "But they didn't fight hard enough, did they? Not for us. Not for their children. We were discarded." Raven leaned close, voice like a blade. "We'll make them regret it." I nodded. "Not now. Not yet. But one day." The clouds trembled with the roar of helicopter blades. For the first time in years, we saw technology that didn't belong to us. The mountains shook as dozens of armed soldiers descended, not zombies, not children, real trained adults. "Attention, survivors." The speakers thundered across the forest. "You have been rescued. Remain calm and prepare for extraction." Rescued? No. Collected. Children cried with relief. Some dropped their weapons. Some even cheered. We didn't. Raven and I exchanged a look. Their tone was wrong. Their formation was hostile. Their eyes, cold. Studying. Measuring. We were lined up and shackled as patients, not survivors. Loaded into trucks. Then into ships waiting offshore. The sea swallowed the mountains behind us, our home, our battlefield, our graves. The city children from every faction stared in silent fear. Even they felt the wrongness. The capital skyline rose ahead, shining and perfect, untouched by the horror we endured. Children soldier candidates. Delivered back to their captors. That night, packed into a metal room aboard the ship. Raven leaned close, voice soft but lethal. "We'll play along. We'll smile. We'll follow orders." Her hand slipped into mine, steady, fierce. "Until the day we burn their world to the ground." I squeezed back, whispering the truth I swore on every scar. They trained us to survive. They trained us to kill. They made us monsters. I smiled, a cold, dangerous smile. They'll regret giving us those skills. Outside, the soldiers laughed. Inside, the lights flickered, cameras whirring softly. We pretended to sleep. But Raven and I stayed awake. Watching. Planning. Waiting. For the day the mountain wolves are unleashed on the ones who created us. They wanted weapons. They're about to get war.